What's good, everybody? This is Wilson. Um, I want to talk to you about the hobby of Dungeons and Dragons and how to get into it. First of all, what is Dungeons and Dragons? It's a tabletop role playing game that you play with others at a table or online on a virtual tabletop, and you basically take part in shared storytelling. And to make it feel more grounded, you take the part of a character, you create a character, and you inhabit that character pretty much. And you play in a world created by a person called the Dungeon Master. The Dungeon Master is the one that runs the game. They are the ones that are trying to portray what they're thinking in their head to you. So that way, in your head, you feel like you're in this fantasy world. So, think about it as like, let's say if somebody was trying to read a novel to you, okay, and they were reading it off. The Dungeon Master sort of kind of is doing that, but you get to take part in shaping the story and changing it. Okay, the Dungeon Master might have a specific end game in mind for characters, but it is you that is shaping the story for the most part, and it should be like that anyway. So what you need to get started, if you are to be a player and a Dungeon Master, is the set of rules, and that is contained within the player's handbook. And right now we're on the 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons, and this is what it looks like. Okay, in there it contains the rules on how to play the game. It tells you what you need, and also it tells you how to create a character. Tells you what kind of equipment you can buy, so on and so forth. I'm just keeping that very simple, best as I can. Now, if you want to be a Dungeon Master, you also want this book, okay? But you also want this. No, not that one. This one. For new Dungeon Masters, okay? The Dungeon Master's Guide. In there, it tells you how to create settings, worlds, things that are inside the world. This thing is like a how society is built book. This is like a tomb of how society works, pretty much. It's kind of crazy. Society, how to make a fantasy world too, as well. It's very smart book. Even if you don't want to play the game, this is a really smart book to even look at. It's pretty intriguing, and people who are writing novels, this will be a good book to look at, because that can help people who are writing create a living, breathing world in their books. So I definitely recommend this for Dungeon Masters. And also, Dungeon Masters are going to want this book, the Monster Manual. Now, all 3 of these books are part of a core set, and each edition has their core set. So this is what we have here for the 5th edition. And in here it contains pictures of the monsters, creatures that can inhabit this world that the Dungeon Master wants to create, and also it has stats for the monsters. So behind the scenes, the Dungeon Master is rolling dice for the creatures in the book, what they can and cannot do. So definitely, if you want to get into the hobby, just in summary, get yourself the player's manual, get yourself some dice, and just read the instructions on how to create a character. Find that Dungeon Master, collaborate with them, and there are a lot of people out there who are new, that are just getting into this hobby. And if you wanted to play this with people online, I highly recommend Roll20.net. Really easy to find games for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. There are other types of role-playing games out there, like Pathfinder. There's some Star Wars tabletop role-playing games, Starfinder, Dragon Age, plenty of them. Now, Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition also they come out every year with supplements, and they give you greater control on, more options for character creation, lore books to help Dungeon Masters create better worlds, different settings. And there's also books that are called modules, or published adventures. And those are fun to look at too. Now, this is the one that I've got out of the starter edition box set. And that's actually perfect for people getting into that first time as a dungeon master is that book. Is to get the starter edition box set, and you get basically a summary of the rules. You get the summary of the dungeon master rules, and you get a handful of monsters here and there that you can use, and also some dice, and pre-made character sheets so people can just play right away. But this is an adventure that comes with that set. It's called The Lost Mine of Phandelver, and that's a perfect starting point. You know, like here's an example of what players can hear in the very beginning of an adventure. All right, let's say you created a character. Okay, so in the city of Neverwinter, a dwarf named Gundren Rockseeker asked you to bring a wagon load of provisions to the rough and tumble settlement of Phandalin, a couple days' travel southeast of the city. Gundren was clearly excited and more than a little secretive about his reasons for the trip, saying only that he and his brothers had found something big, and that he'd pay you 10 gold pieces each for escorting his supplies safely to Barthen's Provisions, a trading post in Phandalin. He then set out ahead of you on horse, along with a warrior escort named Sildar Hallwinter, claiming he needed to arrive early to take care of business. You spent the last few days following the high road south from Neverwinter, and you just recently veered east along the Triboar Trail. You've encountered no trouble so far, but this territory can be very dangerous. Bandits and outlaws have been known to lurk along the trail. Now, if I was a dungeon master, I would be like, okay, so how did you all meet? Meaning, you know, how did everybody here at this table that is playing Dungeons and Dragons, how did you all meet? And players will most likely will look at the character sheet. Maybe they've discussed it beforehand, how they all met, or maybe they're starting to meet right now, or no, they're already on the wagon, traveling. Yes. So, just an example, and then the dungeon master really has to play catch up. Like, they have to think really far ahead of their players and think of branching paths that characters may take, you know, in preparation for a game, because these games can be right off the cuff, and what is it called? There's a lot of improvising on their part to create a story. So, yeah, you got published adventures, but you know, the dungeon master is the one who's going to need to soak up all this in, and what parts they want to use and don't want to use, and what they want to add, so on and so forth. Alright, so that's about it. Just an example of the hobby of Dungeons and Dragons. Trust me, it's a lot more in-depth than what I just said, but that's just to get you started. If you have any questions, let me know. And there's a handful of YouTube videos out there on how to create a character, like Dawnforge Cast. Oh my word, there's so many out there. Critical Role is a famous tabletop role-playing YouTube channel, so where people sit at a table and they're playing a game together, so that's fun to watch sometimes. And Dawnforge Cast, Critical Role, Nerdarchy is another place to visit if you are wanting to learn how to play Dungeons and Dragons, and also Fistful of Dice. Okay, so check out Roll20 if you want to, or find some friends who may want to get into this. The community is huge right now. So this is the best time to get into it, guys. Alright, thank you. This is Wilson. I'm signing out. Peace.